Thank you all for getting up this morning to come to our panel on Beyond Content Delivery, Teaching Critical Thinking Skills in a MOOC. I'm going to introduce everybody very briefly and direct you to the longer bios that are on the online program and other places that I may not know about. So in addition to me, we have Debbie Cavalier, who's the Vice President of Online Learning and Continuing Education and CEO at the Berklee College of Music. We have Al Filreis, who is the Kelly Family Professor of English, Director of the Center for Programs in Contemporary Writing, Faculty Director of the Kelly Writers House at the University of Pennsylvania. James V. Green, who's the Director of Entrepreneurship Education and Hinman CEO's Senior Lecturer and Associate Director of MTech and the A. James Clark School of Engineering at the University of Maryland, College Park, and Michael Roth, who has the mercifully brief title of President at Wesleyan University. So thank you all for coming today. I have to admit that I'm the novice in this group. My MOOC will launch in October, and so I have as much to learn as anyone here today. We're proposing to have very brief presentations of about 5 minutes, and then leave plenty of time for questions and dialogue with all of you who have come today. So we've had a lot of talk about revolution, and I wanted to bring in this image because it's one that has informed much of my scholarship and thinking about this topic. It's an image of a crowd who is self-elected to come before the camera, and it's also important that it's a photograph. This is Paris in 1871, the revolution of the Paris Commune, which was very much, in fact, in part a revolution about access to education, which was one of the main platforms. These people have come together to demonstrate their commitment to the revolution. It's an amazing image, and it's also an image that reminds us of the relationship between revolution and technology, which is one of the things that we're here to talk about today. That said, it's a double-edged image, because this image of celebration of the people come out to the streets to overturn the government and bring on brave new forms of social organization, when the revolution was repressed, was used by the police to hunt them all down, and was really one of the first wanted posters in the history of photography. And I put this up there because we've had a lot of congratulatory talk about MOOCs and revolutions at this conference. But revolutions are double-edged. Technology is double-edged. And I do think it's our jobs as artists and musicians and scholars in the humanities and historians and critical thinkers to think critically about the very forms of social engagement that we're proposing here today. So it's I think the job of the business school people to be futurists and boosters, and it's our job to be historians and compassionate skeptics, and I think we'll hear a little bit about that today. That said, this is the image that for me made me want to do a MOOC. It's the image that brought CalArts to Coursera in a way. It's an image that appeared in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and these are actually two gentlemen from edX, so a somewhat competing organization. But I looked at this image and I thought, what are these two old esteemed guys doing on a video, you know? And there's something about this phenomenon that it's a bunch of us, a bunch of sort of, you know, mid-career or very established scholars kind of in some ways nervously confronting a huge unseen audience that we can't always put our hands on. But they said they're doing it to bring a dialogue about public health to a global platform. And I do think the notion of communication on a massive global platform, of public thinking in very much public, is something that the MOOCs have to offer. And it was at that moment that I thought, I really want CalArts to be a part of this conversation, part of this global learning community, and part of also thinking what it means to do this together. We've also had a lot of talk about whether or not MOOCs are glorified textbooks. I actually hope they are to some degree, because I hate these things. And I will say, as a provost, a tuition at CalArts is roughly $39,000 a year, which is expensive, and we're all concerned about affordability and accessibility. But as provost, I know where that money's going. It's going largely to pay people to teach and to support teaching. And it's expensive, and that said, they're all not equally well paid. So I struggle with that, but I really struggled when my daughter this year at Tulane paid $274 for Gardner's Art Through the Ages, which was bad when I was a kid, and is still bad, And so the idea that we can take these static, problematic things apart and put them together in more interactive, more timely, and in a more responsive way is, to me, tremendously powerful. It's a great potential in all of this. And then the last thing I will say is that for us, there's a lot of talk about, can critical thinking be taught online? Can creativity be taught in a technologically based or online environment? I would say yes, because creativity is social. And if we heard Thomas Friedman talking yesterday about the relationship between the world is flat that he wrote in 2001 and the sort of hyper-connected, even flatter world of today, I think it's the phenomenon of social media that is actually laying the groundwork for the teaching of creativity online. And it's important to remember that all of the real moments of creative engagement in the history of art and literature, I think, were moments of sociability. Picasso and Braque, at the moment that they were painting the most hermetic and inscrutable cubism, needed each other to talk to in order to be able to do that painting. And in a very kind of funny way, they were a learning community. In 1909, Picasso and Braque in Paris were a learning community. So, you know, I read a lot of the things that are published about online learning and MOOCs, and they're largely done by the STEM side of the house. And here is Salman Khan, who I respect tremendously and was really interested to read his book, but he comes again and again to the point of he doesn't know if creativity can be taught online. And he doesn't know what it means to teach creativity. I know, actually. I have every confidence that I can teach anybody to be a better artist. And I think I can do it online, too. I don't think I can teach anybody to be a great artist. That's the kind of different and more ephemeral thing. But the thing of it is, and this is the real potential of the MOOC for me, the thing of it is it may be massive, but if it brings two people together from different parts of the world whose contact with each other ignites creativity, that takes that notion of an avant-garde, of a learning community, out of the realm of the specificity of one city or another, whether it was Paris in the 19th century, New York in the 20th century, Beijing in the 21st century, and makes it possible across those divides. And so for me, the real potential of the MOOC is massive, maybe counterintuitive, because I only need to engage and bring together 2 or 3 people to think it's been an incredible success. And so that's my set of hypothetical propositions into what might be possible with this new learning format. And I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Cavalier.
Thank you, Jeannene. Good morning, everybody. Just okay. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I wanted to share a little bit in the 5 minutes that I'm going to be presenting about Berklee College of Music and our history in online education and where we're going now with MOOCs and how we're addressing teaching arts and music online through collaboration and communication. So just a bit of an overview. Berklee College of Music is the largest music college in the world, based in Boston, founded in 1945. At the time, jazz was the popular music, and Berklee was founded on the premise that music should be taught through music of the day. So we teach everything now, from hip-hop and rap to country and American roots music, all of that. In 2002, we started an online program to expand the reach of the college and provide music opportunities to a global community of musicians. In that time, we've taught about 12,000 students per year from 150 countries. And we're teaching courses and certificate programs, and we'll soon have online degrees. The whole approach with the online program has been, for 11 years, portfolio-based assessment, and that's what we're doing with the MOOCs as well. So students demonstrate an understanding of the learning objectives for the course through projects, upload productions, songs that they've written, orchestrations that they've done. And I think that's a really important part of effectively teaching music and the arts online. I know that was one of the questions for this panel. this is just a quick snapshot from our homepage for the online program at Berklee. And you can see that we're teaching all of these different areas of music, music production, and we've always been focused on, as Jeannene said, helping musicians to become better musicians. And with our MOOCs, we're thrilled to be part of Coursera. We have got 4 courses, and we made the strategic decision to start with entry-level courses so that we can build the foundation with students from all over the world, aspiring musicians, and then build from there. All of these courses have the same approach as Berklee Online has had for 11 years, portfolio-based assessment, peer-to-peer evaluation, and I wanted to just make a note that I think it's very important that the tools available, the technological tools available, are invisible so that there's no hindrance between communication, collaboration between the students. And I think there's some room for improvement there within the existing platform, but easily remedied. So I just wanted to dive into one of the current courses that's running right now, Introduction to Music Production. And this is just a quick snapshot of an assignment from one of our production students, a young man from Greece. Okay, thank you. And the class was challenged with teaching the rest of the class some of the concepts that they learned about music production in any form of media that they would like. So this particular student from Greece chose to do a video, and we might have to make a link available to all of you for this video. Let's see. Oh, here we go. It's a 5-minute video, and I've taken just a 40-second excerpt to share with you today.
First thing you need in order to record an acoustic instrument is a microphone. This is mine. It's a condenser microphone, which I use in my home studio. A condenser microphone is really the best choice for a studio, as it is very accurate and the kind of what you hear is what you get microphone. So the sounds I am producing will be represented as accurately as possible in my DAW. In other words, it has what we would consider a flat frequency response. It picks up all frequencies equally. This is the graph for the frequency response of my mic, and as you can see, it's, well, pretty flat, okay? So it can be used for a variety of sound sources, as it efficiently covers a wide range of frequencies from, say,
we're really amazed by how much the Coursera students are putting into these assignments, whether it's music production examples like that or songs that they've written. And let's see. I would like to share with you some of the critiques that this student received for this assignment. And I highlight this because I think this is an area for improvement and something really important to consider with arts-based education. And that is, these assignments are being reviewed in a kind of like a one-way street. So Peer 1, Peer 2, and Peer 3 are providing feedback. We're not quite sure who those people are, and there's no opportunity right now for the creator of this assignment to respond to the critiques. These happen to be very positive, and same thing with a songwriting critique that I have listed up here, I've posted up here. But sometimes the critiques can be, a misunderstanding happens, and we really need that two-way dialogue, that communication, to bring everything up to a higher level. And so the challenges that we're finding in our current running of our first 2 MOOC courses are twofold, that assignment critiques are not yet part of a dialogue, and that really needs to happen. It does lead to misunderstandings between the creator and the assessor. And the other thing is the notion of anonymous posts. So, and this is direct from our faculty, that the community of respect and responsibility is definitely strengthened when posts have attribution. And in addition, it creates a network of musicians that are coming together. Often our students in Berklee Online and also in the Coursera courses are going on to do projects together outside of the course. So we're making a plea to Coursera to further these tools to enable us to create arts education courses that lead to that kind of meaningful discussion and do not stunt any aspect of the collaboration. An example of how this can be done is with our existing Berklee Online program. You can see there are 21 replies to a student post in this songwriting for film and television course. And those posts are half from the assessor and half from the creator, assessors. So the critique, as you can see, from the first student is there, and the response from Eli, the student. Again, another critique from a classmate and a response. Sometimes these critiques are quite lengthy, and they're based on learning objectives. It's part of the student's responsibility to provide those critiques. And sometimes from the instructor, the student will receive, in this case, a 2-minute audio clip, custom for this student, giving a critique and providing feedback, and the student has the opportunity once again to respond. So just making a plea for providing the kind of tools that make for meaningful interaction for arts-based education. And I'll turn it over to Al.
Actually, James is going to go next because we've got the media set up.
Okay.
And then we'll have Al and then me.
All right, good morning. My name is James Green from the University of Maryland. I teach entrepreneurship within our Clark School of Engineering, and we built this course on developing innovative ideas for new companies. I didn't know I was building a critical thinking course at the time. I just thought I was doing an entrepreneurship course, and it was built on a course that we were successful in delivering on campus for a number of years. And this was kind of the precursor to what does it take to really develop an entrepreneurial idea before you get to the point of trying to write a business plan. So the types of things that we did, it incorporates some elements of engineering and technology and business, but it also brings in elements of psychology and sociology and economics, and that we were trying to get students familiar with what are all the things that happens before I get to the point whereby I am working kind of here, which is where my business plan may actually start, where I actually have a concept, to what goes on before that, of what's going on within mindset, within motivation, within behaviors, getting into some kind of macro elements of the economy, of industry, of competition, and then how can I deliver value and come up with candidate solutions, product or service-based solutions, based on ideas and interests that I have. And so that's the avenue that we went down in developing the course. And how that materialized was in somewhat of an academic fashion, where we had one assessment per week that was preceded by half a dozen or so lecture topics that were geared towards helping students understand and develop their skills in each of these elements. We were, I think, fairly rigorous in the assignments. We gave you one shot, so you got to take your assignment once. We graded everything, so with that, even the peer assessments had a numeric grade associated with them. We would change a few things going forward, and that one, the peer assessments are certainly tricky to do, I would say, and take some practice in getting that right. And what we've also realized that we want to do more of is things that are not graded. So in that way, have more discussion boards, have more opportunities for students to share ideas, to get feedback, to form teams that might live beyond the course. And in that way, not only are they building some skill sets, but they're building relationships. And kind of unlike our traditional classroom, not everything has to be graded. So we're going to move forward with some of that in our next offering. We always get the question of numbers, and so this is how our numbers tracked. We enrolled about 88,000, about half of those attended. Of those that attended, about half of those took exams. Of those that took exams, about a quarter of them passed. And again, the definition of passing is that 70% or whatever score you decide to assign to it. But what we've realized too is that not all students intend to pass, meaning that many students are going to be interested in taking the content, learning the material, having a dialogue and a discussion with other students that are of similar interest, but they don't want to take quizzes. They're not particularly motivated by statements of accomplishment. So recognizing and understanding different motives and different interests of students, even within the same course, is something that is certainly important, and that we are going to even do a little bit more coaching on the front end in our next offering of this course in May on what are some different ways that you can participate and ways that you can learn and experience the course. We were also very curious to know, would this work, and how do you measure work? It's interesting to look at data, and it's interesting to look at enrollments and passed and participated and things of that nature. We did kind of an abbreviated version of a longitudinal method that we use on campus to measure improvement of an entrepreneurial mindset of students. When we do this on campus, we typically do it over a 2-year span, and we see that based on our programming and courses and things of that nature, that we're able to motivate approximately a 15% improvement in entrepreneurial mindset for our University of Maryland students on campus over a 2-year gap. What we did here, again, was an abbreviated version of that. We surveyed students at the beginning of the course. We surveyed students at the end of the course. We had about 6,500 that completed this survey at both occurrences and saw a 3.5% improvement in self-efficacy during that timeline. And so what we're looking for there are things like resourcefulness, problem solving, goals accomplishment, things of that nature Now, there are the biases. These are self-reported. These are self-assessments, but it's given us another measure beyond just the simple capture and the scoring and the grading of was there a mindset change during the time in the course. And then the last thing we did was a course eval, and we did this very similarly to our case-based or our regular credit-based courses, and that we wanted to mimic that. That way we had some measure of, based on student satisfaction, we did a cut and paste essentially for at least the University of Maryland method of the course evals that the students do at the end of the term. Let's serve up that same eval in the same order and the same scale to our Coursera audience and see how we do on that. And so it measures a lot of things, as I expect you're familiar with, of not only faculty preparedness, but learning a lot and effective delivery of that content. And so we were able to track this for this version of the course and see how it compared to the equivalent offering of our face-to-face credit-based. And this was essentially identical. So we found that from a kind of consumer or a customer satisfaction standpoint, as we did at least this version of our MOOC and compared it to a similar course that we offer on credit-based offering, that the satisfaction of the students was equivalent when you look at those two. So I think I'm under my 5 minutes, hopefully. And we'll go on to the next one.
Al Filreis, Penn, and I've taught at Penn for 28 years, and it's possible that I'll say a few things that are snarky or critical or extreme maybe, and so I want to begin by saying that in 28 years I've never felt this was the best teaching experience that I've ever done. Teaching ModPo, the Modern Poetry course, in the fall of 2012. I hope to teach it every fall from now on. And it really was the best teaching experience I've ever had. It was extraordinary. And working with the staff of Coursera has been a privilege and an honor. They have been really open-minded about some of the things that I'm going to tell you. Anybody check Twitter last night when you got back to your hotels and homes? The hashtag is something really dorky, like Coursera Conf @Penn. Anyway, check that hashtag out. And a lot of people tweeted a lot of things that we said yesterday, and it's okay for you to do that, but it's going to be out of context, I'm sure. Death to the lecture. Go ahead and do that if you want. The dilemma I face. This is sort of the artsy group. James, we're going to include you in it. Sort of the artsy group, and the artsy people faced a dilemma, especially those early joiners, such as myself, when Daphne and Andrew came to present at Penn, which was last January, more than a year ago, right? January? February? Anyway, yeah, it was a long time ago. And by April, when I signed up, I realized that there were some elements in the system that weren't really ready for the humanistic prime time that I had in mind. The strengths were the delivery of content through lectures and the quizzes. And neither of those things those were both off the table for me because I don't lecture, although I'm kind of doing it now, but I'll be brief. I don't lecture, and I've never lectured, and I didn't intend to lecture about open-ended experimental modern poetry, which requires a critical community to do the work and enact the learning community. I couldn't lecture, so I had to think through that. And then the quizzes, as I told Daphne, and she smiled at this when I first said it, the quizzes are silly.
They're not silly.
Well, that's what you said when I said that, and I'm sorry to use that'll be tweeted. But she tweet her. The quizzes are not silly, but for me they're really tertiary. They're not even secondary. And it was a hell of a thing to write a quiz about an Emily Dickinson poem, which nobody's ever figured out. How do you write a quiz and then grade it? So for me, the quizzes and lectures. Well, what was left? The discussion forums, the creation of live webcasts, the use of social media around Twitter, Facebook, and creating the discussion forums into a kind of social media space, which I'm so happy to say that the Coursera staff, they're getting us there. It's on its way. So it was a real dilemma for me to construct a course that requires an interpretive community. The students need to be an interpretive community. I'm not about content delivery at all. So I just want to say a couple of things about this. First of all, In this room, at least, I don't think a MOOC is, the metaphor of a MOOC as a textbook works. I don't like it. I don't want to use it. You can use it, but I think of it as a course. A MOOC is a course, not a textbook. And a course creates occasions where students can learn critical analysis and critical thinking and creativity by doing it. And MOOCs can provide such occasions for emphasizing the more or less synchronous, community-based, synchronous interactions made possible by the discussion forums, by things like live webcasts, by chat-based office hours, and by peer review. Okay, so unlike a textbook, in my opinion, these courses are best, at least on the arts and humanities side, but not only. There's some other areas where this is true. They are best when they are more or less synchronous. They are best when they are felt to be happening now. Now is a broad term. Not now, this second, true synchronicity, but asynchronous, so responsively asynchronous that they feel synchronous. This spring, I'm taking Michael Roth's course with Michael Roth, the president of Wesleyan. And he writes to me every couple days and signs off, "It's still a little cold here in Connecticut. Love, Michael." I don't think he says love.
Say happy reading.
But happy reading. But his students, I among them, love him. I mean, I think that's a good enough word for it. And when some guy doesn't show up for a week, I'm probably stealing a story you were going to tell.
That's all right, I have a lot of stories.
So when some guy in his class doesn't show up for a week, he says, "What the hell, I'm the president of Wesleyan, I have a whole schedule of meetings today, but I'm worried about this guy. This is a guy who always posts to the discussion forums. He's not there. So I'm going to email him," as I did many times. "Hi, this is Michael Roth, your instructor in this MOOC. We haven't heard from you. Are you okay?" If you feel that it's happening now, then you feel like a learning community has been created, and then the meetups mean something, and then the older person who is currently old, you know, who is with us but old, might have something to say that will teach us. When you get these imitation lectures, I don't know if that's happened in the MOOCs you've been in, but the ModPo people, they did their own videos around the world and reproduced the discussion-based videos that we did. The group from Edinburgh took a poem, a Scottish poem, and they sat around. They didn't have coffee, they had beer, but they filmed it, and it became a video like one of ours, right? So if the movers of this revolution, Daphne's in the room, so I'll just say, Daphne, if she had in mind that we could break down the traditional barriers that separated the subjects of teachers and the objects of their students, break down the traditional notion that the subject is here and that the objects are there receiving, right? Break that down, the traditional way in which that happens, we have to take the next step, which is, it's not simply to break down subject-object relations by moving the objects out across the world. The next thing we need to do is break down the nature of the subject-object relation, right? In the arts, we know that it's a subject-subject relation at its best, right? So it's not simply down with the lecture from yellowed lecture notes in a room at one time, never to be reproduced, except very expensively again, with the same yellowed lecture notes and almost word for word the same lecture in a room, and break that down to have that lecture videoed and then dispersed everywhere and reusable. We need to make the next step, and the next step is to break down the I know, you don't, I have, you aren't, you don't have, I have, you need, I speak, you listen, I stand, you sit, I wear a tie, you don't. Well, I am, you are not yet. I think, you are thought about. That's the subject-object relationship that we need to make subject-subject. And we do that by dispersing the job of thinking, of creating, of doing projects, and of talking. So the key to humanistic learning is to build an interpretive community. I'm not interested in delivering content. The poetry is content, but I'm not into that. I'm into the poetry as a formal occasion for critical, open-ended thinking. A lecture cannot enable an interpretive community. It cannot even model it. So the keys are the discussion forums. We need to be there. live webcasts as much as possible. We need to be synchronously there every once in a while so that people can see, oh, that guy, he really, and he's answering my question now, right? And peer review if you can do it. And there are other forms. Let me conclude with this. In your packet, there's some pie charts, and one of them is a little chart. Actually, it's bar graphs. Coursera folks surveyed some people to ask what would encourage you to participate in the discussion forums. 90% of those who answered that question said more TAs and professors joining the conversations. 90%. That's a lot of people. So I want to end by saying this. Our students will have the conversations. They will have them. They are having them. About, in my case, poetry, they're having them. The question isn't whether these people, these adults that we've engaged through Coursera, through these MOOCs, the question isn't whether they will be having these conversations. The question is whether we're part of those conversations. And teaching is being part of a conversation that's going to happen anyway, but if you're part of it, it's better. It's moving in a certain direction. It's lively. You can be part of it asynchronously. You can be part of it based on something that you recorded 3 years ago. But you can also be part of it now. And when you're part of it now, the guy that Michael emailed, where have you been? You can be sure that no matter how busy he'd gotten or what other family crisis he was dealing with that kept him away for a week, you can be sure that he was back with Michael. That was a personal thing that he did. So as a teacher, that's what I'm all about. It doesn't make sense for me to teach to a group that's silent and invisible. It's like not teaching at all. Thank you.
So I'm Michael Roth. I took Al's class. And I have fewer principles than Al. I actually think you probably can do some lecturing. There's a mix of the synchronous and the asynchronous that's we're still working out. I'm teaching a class, but I'm the president of Wesleyan. I guess I should say, maybe I should speak as the president first, which is we have, 6 or 7 classes. The reason I'm teaching one is because I didn't know if I can get anyone else to do it. Wesleyan is a small liberal arts school where we believe very strongly in the scholar-teacher model, and that professors working very closely with small groups of students. 3/4 of our classes are seminars. We lecture because we have to occasionally. We don't like to do it, and we're getting away from it almost everywhere at our university. And so to start doing this massive, so-called massive open online classes seemed bizarre to some of my faculty colleagues, but not to all of them. So there were a few of them, some of them teaching for 40 years at Wesleyan, some of them relatively young. Came up to me and said, the magic words the president's left to hear. That sounds cool, man. That's what they said. That sounds cool. Giving away what we know, what we believe in, what we want to share, giving it away for free all over the world. Oh, man, that sounds really cool. My classics professor said to me. My economics professor said to me. My statistics professor, my social psychology professor, my film professor, who also said, and how much are you going to pay us? So the guy from Duke said yesterday, the provost from Duke. My provost would say he doesn't respect provost. The provost from Duke said that nobody does it for the money. Not the faculty, unlike the administrators, often have to find ways to earn a little bit of extra money, and it is a little. And they would, I don't know if my colleagues are here. I don't see them. They would say, and they have said, it's a pittance, but it is, some people a pittance matters. But they thought it was really interesting to try to share what we do with large groups of students, heterogeneous groups of students. Wesleyan, like Penn, it's a fancy place. It's hard to get into. We pride ourselves on diversity. We call ourselves Diversity University. We pride ourselves on that, but it's hard to get into. Most of our students, a lot of them are on financial aid, but most of them aren't, barely most, but it's expensive. And my students in the MOOC I'm teaching, which is called the Modern and the Postmodern, it's in some ways an old-fashioned course. It starts with Kant and Rousseau. And it ends with, I don't know, Alison Bechdel. It ends now. It ends very recently. We go every week. It's a different kind of book. I didn't know if this would translate, but I teach this kind of stuff. I've been doing it a long time. And it has been extraordinarily exciting for me as a teacher. I don't know if it's the... I wouldn't want to say it's the best teaching experience I've ever had, because I had so many students out there that I love over the years, and each of them has provided such interesting experiences. But what's interesting about it is, as Al was saying, it's not that we're giving them content. It's not that we are giving things to them that they can download. It is giving them the opportunity to upload their experience in a context of learning. It's the uploading from them that matters most to me, and I find it enormously exciting. So I'm going to move very quickly in the last 2.5 minutes from that array of Wesleyan courses. I can tell you more about them. I'm trying to take as many of them as possible. I don't spend enough time in the gym. I try to watch classics lectures on a treadmill. It increases the pain, and they say, right? No pain, no gain. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about liberal learning and trying to argue for the liberal arts education in America. And I'm really interested not just in the courses, but in how students of various kinds around the world put together a suite or constellation of courses that might constitute a contemporary version of liberal learning. I think I have 4 for a change. Instead of usually it's 3, but I have 4 words that I'll use to get at that liberal learning. They're liberate, animate, cooperate, and instigate. And I'll just go quickly through them from my class. Liberate. I didn't know. I thought MOOC is about big numbers, sending lots of content out in the world. Nonsense. What was most exciting to me in the first week of my class, somebody writes in, "My God, I love this stuff. I am stuck here in this rural town in England with my mother who has dementia. I can't get out. This course is opening the world to me." I read this. Oh my God, it's so moving. Within 2 hours, there's a stream of comments from other people. Me too. And this is what's happening with me from different parts of the world. This guy suddenly doesn't just have, at that point it was Kant, not the friendliest guy to open the doors of the world to you. Right? One of my other students says, "Why does he use so many words?" It's the first time I've ever heard that from a postal worker in the Midwest. But this guy suddenly found a community. He did experience, I believe this very strongly, he did experience a feeling of freedom in the course. I don't believe in critical thinking. I think it's vastly overrated. It's a full employment program for professors who think a little bit, but not too much. I don't believe, critical thinking is a dime a dozen. Absorptive thinking and things that set you free, whoa, that's exciting to me. Liberate, animate, see the world anew. I have so many of these students, and I know in your class as well. They take the class and they say, "I see things differently." I have a lot of older students, and there's one person who writes that we read Paris Spleen, Baudelaire's prose poems in my class. It's Paris Spleen, a sandwich between Darwin and Nietzsche. What a sandwich! She says, she writes to the discussion board, "I am bicycling through the hills of New England with a copy of Baudelaire in my back pocket." It's a skinny book. I take it out and I read poems. My life is different. And other people comment back to her, "Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I am going to take Baudelaire with me when I go." Classrooms, who needs them, right? See the world anew, animate. Cooperate. This is what Al was talking about. I mean, you do have learning communities that form our choices whether we're going to be a part of them. One of the most popular threads on my discussion board, one of the most popular threads is additional reading. How insulting to the professor. Usually in my class, I pride myself in like one of the hardest graders at Wesleyan. I don't want all the stuff everybody gets them all right. I think nonsense. Try to scare the students into working harder. It's been my silly my silly neuroses for many years. And then I get all these students writing in, well, Roth has given us a book a week, but here's 27 other things you could read. Here are the, here are poems, here are videos, here are movies. And then they write back, of course, to one another to talk about how they could continue thinking together and learning together, independent of the professor, unless he wants to join in and play too, which I love to do. But another kind of cooperation, just to get, it's not all, yeah, I'm almost done. But I'm last. It's not, the other big thing was, the thread reads, "Are vaginas offensive?" Because Roth, stupid Roth, in his painting lecture, which I give them while they can catch up on, I talk about painting very superficially, I'm afraid. But I said, I'm not showing you this Courbet painting, The Origin of the World, because some of you might find it offensive, but it's really important. So this woman writes in, why does Roth think vaginas are offensive? And then there's this, people jump to my defense. But he actually referred to the painting. We can go look at it. And there's this great, great debate, ranging from high-level theoretical feminism to, dare I say, gut reactions, a real learning community beyond what I certainly anticipated. And the last thing is instigate. Students in these classes demand context in which they can experience the joy of thinking otherwise. It's not content, it's context. They want a context in which they can, in the good company of other people and of teachers that matter, they can experience the joy of thinking otherwise with great artistic material. And that is a thrill to be part of.
So we tried to power through as best we can, and now I think we'll turn it over to questions from you.
I'm Cosmelli from Sapienza, Rome University. I have just a small comment. When it's written, you can teach art and humanities. Okay, for me it's silly in that sense. I'm a physicist, and I have a class of physics and philosophy. And my point of view is you can teach science online. Because you imagine that I write a formula on the blackboard and that's the end. No, of course, it's very easy. But it's the meaning that you have to transmit. And so when you want to teach physics, you have to use your hand in something. So my idea is that the stereotype is you cannot teach online, and that's a stereotype. And my point of view, you can teach, just you have to use different ways. Also the point of view that when you have a class, you have in front your student, and you look at the face, and you ask a question, and that is not possible online. But my best question comes from my student 2 hours before, after the class, when they think about. So I think that we can teach online. It's just different for each kind of class, science or music or art.
No, I think that's certainly true. And one of the ways that I've had the most experience with it is just in terms of the simple learning management systems that a lot of us probably use now. And I was one of the first, for whatever reason, in my school to use the discussion forums. And I was amazed in the context of a graduate student seminar how much they wanted to talk in the middle of the night. Right? You know, and it was really amazing, the things that they said online, and it was much easier to come in and start a seminar discussion at 9 in the morning, which is when I usually teach, if they'd warmed up at midnight the night before than if we all came in cold. Other questions, comments? Passive learners out there, not good. Yeah.
Hi, I'm from Emory University. My name's Donna, and I'm a faculty developer by day. I also teach as adjunct faculty. And so I'm excited that you're having this conversation, first of all, because I teach in humanities. But I'm wondering, Al, especially you're talking about the importance of the faculty being there. Okay, so this is me asking you as a faculty developer. How do you find the time to do that, right? Because I know, like, at our school, you know, Steve's teaching 40,000 students, and Kimby's teaching 20,000 students. So how do you, can you give us some suggestions for how to manage that, you know, and not spend 24/7? Because I think you said something else that we were in earlier yesterday. that you're basically on these discussions, like you're on all day, every day. And most faculty at Emory are not, they just can't do that. So what are your suggestions for like, drawing boundaries but still being able to be as present as you think you should be?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, the first time you do a MOOC, it's completely all-consuming. I went to give a talk at a school in Boston. It's a technical school, and the first initial is M. And they were. I talked to the humanities faculty, and after I did this whole presentation, really excited about it, somebody raised her hand, actually a dean, and said, "What about Saturdays?" And I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, it sounds like we're going to have to start working on Saturdays." So I don't even know how to respond to that. I've been working Saturdays all my life as an academic. I went into academia because of that. So there's a lot of new work. On the other hand, there are strategies, and I'll just mention a couple, and we can talk afterwards. One is get the TAs. You need to bring TAs. I have 10 TAs. There's several in the room. Steve is one of them. They can get expensive, but the university, we figured out how to do that, and we've got a way of doing that going forward. But then the community TAs, the second time you teach the course. So we've got 30 community TAs for ModPo in the fall. These are excellent people who did a great job, and they feel honored to be there. And their job is to do a lot of stuff that I had to do the first time, which includes things like, well, if you want to respond to someone, press comment rather than reply. If you want, I was doing a lot of technical stuff. I'm not going to have to do that anymore because of the community TAs. The second time round, for the most part, you're recycling a few of the videos, but you're not remaking them. So that gets easier. You've dealt with the craziness about the vagina not mentioning something important. You learn how to avoid some of those things. Or if you make mistakes, you do it deliberately.
That's right. I'm keeping that.
Yeah. You're going to keep that one. And also the last thing I'll say, because it's a great question, is we really ought to jump in fully and do this, and then figure out how to back out of the ocean a little bit. That's the way to do it. And
faculty that ahead of time, like understand your.
Well, yeah, warn them. They will all find their own strategies. The last thing I'll suggest is this: if I go into a discussion forum and it's raging, it's a thread that's raging, and I just don't have time. I have 4 meetings, and then I have to teach for 3 hours, and it'll be by 8 p.m. tonight when I finally get a chance to do something with this, it will be so far out of control and along that so I go in there and I say, it's not quite true, but I say, I've read this thread. It's somewhat true. I've read this thread. I think it's fascinating. I'm reading everything, and tonight I'll get a chance, and I want to comment on it. The discourse, the level of the discourse changes. It becomes very civil because Al's reading this. We really ought to do something. This ought to be like a course rather than a bunch of people flaming each other. So you need to selectively get in there. All you have to do is email one student, I haven't seen you in a week, and 1,000 will find out that you did that.
Yeah, I think the community is very self-organizing. I guess I have a somewhat different view than Al, that I found that things that seem to be raging, and I think I have to intervene, they intervene to one another. I mean, it is, sometimes it's correcting facts, and sometimes it's changing the tone of the conversation, where I thought it was my job as a professor to do that, and the students think it's their job.
One more question? One or two? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mariana Kepka from Northwestern University, and we're just starting to develop our MOOCs, so I'm wondering to what extent you utilized your students at your universities, to help you in developing the courses, online courses.
Well, we had, I said 8 to 10 ModPo TAs. They were all students who were recently former students, and they know the course, and they were huge. In fact, we didn't lecture. We had a I don't know if any of you have seen these, but we did a round table for every poem, one video per poem, and it's the students who led the way in providing those interpretations. They were crucial. Use them.
Yeah, we also were building courses based on courses we had taught before. So in that way you had, arguably a few years of lessons learned. And then for a lot of the assessments, I would grab students out of the hallway or have my face-to-face TAs come in and take this assessment online and see, just kind of in a focus group of sorts, how they responded.
Yeah. My name is Christina Frey. I'm here at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm the director of the Penn Language Center. It is such a pleasure to be in this room with all of you and to talk pedagogy. It happens very rarely at this level to actually talk about subject-subject, which I think is a fantastic way of really relating to how we interact with our students. It's a pleasure to talk with standing faculty members and full professors about pedagogy and the role of pedagogy. And so I'm really delighted that you might be also talking on your campuses with your foreign language educators, because they have been doing flipping the classroom for 30 years. They have been interactive for 30 years. They know what subject is all about, and so I hope that you include in your conversations your foreign language faculty and your foreign language departments that deal with context all the time, and also have been for many, many years talked about assessment. And so I appreciate very much that Debbie talked about assessment, and certainly the University of Pennsylvania is right now in a moment of talking very much across all the levels about learning outcomes. And so I think it's really wonderful that you address that. And so I applaud all of you for engaging in this conversation. Thank you.
And that's a great way to end, because I realize we went a little bit over. So thank you all very much.